Before you go to mediation, there are a few things you're going to want to do to get prepared. The number one thing is get really clear on your goals. When you go to mediation, what are you trying to accomplish? Probably it's to settle your case, of course. But what else? Are you really sure you want to stay in the marital home? You're really committed to certain possession schedules, certain other assets. So start with the end in mind is always going to be my advice so that you can envision the possibilities. And as the day goes on and gets long and it gets tiring, you can reconnect with your goal and your why. Another thing you can do to get prepared for mediation in Texas is to have a substantial meeting with your legal team. And I think a lot of people skip this step. I know that just on my end, going to a mediation, and I kind of get the vibe that on the other side, that meeting didn't happen. But with our law firm, what you'll do is you'll sit down for an hour or two, depending on how complex, and have a meeting with your legal team to get prepared. You're going to look over the inventory and appraisement mediation spreadsheet. That's the document that names it to tame it. What do you have? What's it worth? And who's going to take it? So you should go through and take a look at that mediation spreadsheet to get a clear picture of, okay, if we're the petitioner, if we filed for divorce, we're going to be making the first offer. So what are we going to offer? And hopefully you're able to do that, like in most situations, before you actually go, so that when you arrive at mediation, you're prepared to get moving right away. Another thing you can do to prepare for mediation in Texas is to take care of yourself. And it's sort of like, when the kids are having the STAR test or SAT test at school. And as parents, we make sure they get to bed on time. We actually offer to make them scrambled eggs and toast. I want you to take care of yourself the same way you would take care of your kids if it was STAR test day or SAT day or their first day of college. Eat a good breakfast. Get good sleep the night before so that you can show up as your best, most authentic self, calm and ready to go. Now, it's easy for me to sit on this stool and tell you this because the night before you may be staring at the ceiling and it's very nervy and scary. So all that to say, assume it might be kind of nervy and scary the night before. So do the things you do now to calm that down. Could you meditate the night before? I love the Muse headband for this, the Choose Muse headband thing you can do, or is watching an old fun movie. For me, a go-to is to watch the Harry Potter movies over and over and over again. Hermione forever. But anyway, another thing you could do is make sure you get really good exercise. However you unwind and de-stress, do that and you take care of you to prepare for mediation. The biggest mistake you can make when you go to mediation is coming in with a stubborn attitude, ready to fight on matters of principle. Now, you're going to get prepared for mediation and have some general ideas of what your goals are, but do not get fixated on the small stuff. Recently, there was a situation where the entire mediation came down to just a couple of $1,000s. And the divorce almost didn't settle over a couple $1,000s because both parties were dug in and thought they were right. And when you just do the math, if you don't settle at mediation and you're going to go to a trial at court, it's going to cost you a real lot more than a couple $1,000s. That just doesn't make sense. But sometimes people, they don't listen to this advice. They come in stubborn and want to fight about the principle of the matter, and they want to get theirs, and they maybe even want to get revenge and make you pay. If you do that, your case may not settle and it'll cost you so much more in money and heartache. And so you're going to go in with a positive attitude, a hopeful attitude, a cooperative spirit, ready to play, let's make a deal. That's probably the number one thing you can do to support yourself and your goals in mediation is come in with a yes and attitude. Do you know about yes and instead of but? I brought this into my life a few years ago and it changes everything. Instead of, I don't want to do that or but, yes, you're right, and this. So whenever they offer you something in mediation, can you find yes, and I want this instead? Or yes, let's do that. And then can I get some more time with the kids? Can you bring in that cooperative spirit trying to make a deal? That's what your lawyers are going to want. That's what the mediator is going to want. That's how the system is going to push you forward, is to make a deal. Because if you don't, what comes after that? It means, hey, all bets are off. You're really going to trial. So that means probably a trial retainer, a lot more discovery, and a lot more heartache and money spent for you and your family. If you settle in mediation in Texas, it's final. A deal's a deal. It is baffling to me how many people call our law firm and want to talk to us about the deal they made at mediation, that they slept a little bit and they kind of thought maybe they don't want to do that anymore. That's not how it works. Actually, a good lawyer friend of mine has a preeminent case that talks about a deal is a deal. If you go to mediation and you come to terms, what you're going to get is called a mediated settlement agreement. That's a thing that's addressed in the Texas Family Code. Those are the terms of your divorce, absent like actual fraud or duress. And I'll just tell you, you ain't going to qualify on duress. This is one of those things in law school that we do pretty early on, is talk about duress. Because as regular folks, we think duress means like, I was really stressed and under pressure. Think like gun to your head. Think like physical, beat you up if you don't sign it. Probably there was not a thug in the corner in your mediation making you do the DocuSign. Sorry, I got a funny image of like this big guy. But once you sign that MSA, those terms, a deal is a deal. The other option could be if there was fraud, if there was actual lying, misrepresentations in the mediation. That one gets a little bit iffier. It's super fact intensive, but as a general rule, you can assume it probably doesn't apply in your situation, because sometimes people don't do full discovery. They don't go through all of the paperwork that people hate doing and spending the money for. So they don't have all the duties to disclose everything to you. So if they kept something out and you didn't do full discovery, you're not going to be able to say that they lied to you because you skipped the part where they had to tell you everything. So for the most part, that MSA, that's it. You're not going to be able to change it. What happens from mediation forward is you take this MSA and then you turn that, your lawyer does, into a divorce decree. And then everybody goes back and forth on the divorce decree, make sure it's in line with the mediated settlement agreement. And then everybody signs it, hopefully. Or if they won't sign it and they're fighting about some terms, you go to the court just to ask like, hey, about drafting, like what day do I have to actually hand over the check? They said the 5th and I said the 10th and we won't agree, but not like, do I have to hand over the check at all? You see the difference? And then the judge will eventually sign it. But like, you do not want to sign the DocuSign or the Hello sign, or there's so many ways to sign stuff. But like, however, anyway, do not sign it unless you're real sure that you can live with these terms and they're in your best interest, in your kid's best interest, because you're not going to be undoing a mediated settlement agreement absent some pretty hairy, scary circumstances.